Now, scientists are no less vulnerable. There are scientists out there who should know what they're doing, but apparently don't know what they're doing. Now, I have someplace here a matchbox. What did I put the matchbox?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, thank you. All right, this is a little box of matches. It has an interesting story, I think, that goes along with it. It's very simple. I got a call one day at my office, and my assistant, the man who preceded Brandon as my assistant, answered the phone along with me. I said, listen in, listen in. And it was a fellow from Lawrence Livermore Laboratories in California. Now, this is a very, very prestigious laboratory. If you walk into that laboratory and throw an apple in any direction, you'll hit a PhD. They're all over. It's absolutely packed with PhDs in physics, usually. And this gentleman said, my name is Dr. So-and-so. I won't mention his name, so I wouldn't embarrass him. And he said, we have proof for the $1 million, Mr. Randi. I was terrified, of course, because this is a PhD talk. And he said, yes, we have proof of it because we have a fellow here, and he gave me his name. He said, he's from Israel. It was not Uri Geller, no. He was somebody I'd never heard of. And I said, oh, and what does he do? And he said, well, he is able to take a simple matchbox and place it on the back of his hand, and it will stand up on the back of his hand. That's wonderful. Now, I looked at my assistant, who was very familiar with magic, and I just indicated the magic books that I have on my counter and my shelf in the office, and he nodded at me, and he went and took out a book by Martin Gardner, who just died 2 weeks ago, unfortunately. Martin Gardner, a great mathematician and scientist, and a wonderful journalist, very, very close friend of mine, who had written this book called Impromptu Magic. And my assistant at the time, Andrew, looked through the book, and he indicated he'd found the page, and he went out to the other telephone where the Xerox machine, the copy machine, he had to make a copy of it first, and then the fax machine was sitting there. And he knew what to do. He could read my mind, you see. Yeah, sure. I said to the fellow at Lawrence Livermore Labs, I said, how did you select the matchbox? And he said, oh, we did it scientifically. He was a PhD after all. He wouldn't do it any old way. They went to the local grocery store and they bought a package of 24 of these. Big cellophane package like that. And they chose it at random without looking. Sure. They took out a box of 24 of them, took them back to the laboratory and mixed them all up. And then they chose one at random and they put the rest of them aside. And then they took out one of the matches and they tested it. And it worked. Wonderful. Okay, and so they marked the box indelibly so that it would be a certain sample. They would have their specimen there. And they had examined, as I said, the matches themselves. And so they took it and they gave it, and Ronnie Marcus was this fellow's name. They gave it to Mr. Marcus. And I said, well, what did he do with it? And they said, oh, very simple thing. He just simply laid it down on the back of his hand and watched what happened. The matchbox stood up on the back of his head. And it stayed there, and then when he told it to go back down again, it went back down. Astonishing. Years of practice and self-denial. And I have no idea how it was done, you see, because I have another one here, looks exactly the same. I said to him, would you go to your fax machine, please? And he said, oh yes, the fax machine is running. And he got a sheet of paper, and it said at the top, the title of the book, Martin Gardner's Impromptu Magic. It said, The Standing Matchbox Trick. And he read this to me on the phone. He said, oh, all right. He said, get a matchbox into the thing. There was a long silence. I said, are you still there? He said, oh yes, I'm reading. He hung up the phone, and that was it. Never heard from him again. Because what Mr. Gardner described was you simply open up the box a little bit like this, and as you lay it down on the back of your hand, you squeeze the loose skin on the back of your hand in the box like that, and then you just tighten up the skin of the back of your hand, and it stands up, and then it goes back down again. You see, I have no idea how it works, as I say. But that's a simple, simple little kid's trick that had fooled a multiple PhD in physics from Lawrence Livermore Laboratories.